In a stark development that has sent shockwaves through the political landscape, an official from the Obama administration has issued a major warning amid what is now being labeled a constitutional crisis. Recent events have seen President Trump aligning himself with Nayib, the president of El Salvador, in an unprecedented act that blatantly challenges a ruling by the United States Supreme Court. Central to this controversy is the deportation case involving the migrant Kilmer Abrego Garcia, a case that could reshape the balance between executive action and judicial authority in America. The incident unfolded as President Trump, accompanied by Nayib, publicly rejected the Supreme Court's order for the return of Mr. Garcia. The Trump administration appears to be orchestrating a maneuver aimed at exploiting a procedural loophole by deporting individuals without the court's notice and transferring them directly into foreign custody. It seeks to bypass established legal constraints. This strategy, according to observers, may effectively allow the government to avoid remedial measures by claiming that any subsequent judicial remedy is rendered moot by the extraterritorial nature of the action. As the meeting progressed, both Trump and Bull offered striking, and some would say alarming, remarks. Their public exchange included not only remarks about the migrants' deportation, but also offhand commentary about the treatment of American citizens. In one instance, there was an unsettling mention of transferring American citizens to El Salvador. Although it remains unclear whether these comments were intended seriously or as a cynical dismissal of accountability, they have fueled concerns among constitutional scholars and human rights advocates. A closer examination of Nayib Bulls' policies in El Salvador reveals an even more disconcerting backdrop. Bull's administration introduced what has been described as a mass incarceration regime, following a violent surge linked to gang activities. In 2022, Bull declared a state of exception that suspended all due process rights for his citizens. The policy led to the indiscriminate arrest of approximately 85,000 individuals, a move that, while ostensibly aimed at restoring security, has irreversibly compromised the legal rights and protections This harsh measure, which has become the foundation of Bull's authority, starkly contrasts with long-standing American judicial principles and amplifies the irony of President Trump's decision to associate with a leader known for his draconian policies. The defiance is not merely procedural, it is deeply symbolic. By standing next to a leader who openly sanctions arbitrary detention and whose policies effectively obliterate the concept of due process, President Trump sends a clear message. The traditional checks and balances designed to protect civil liberties are now subject to reinterpretation, or worse, outright neglect. Such an alignment has vast implications. Both leaders appear to be minimizing the responsibility of public officials and undermining judicial oversight with a cavalier disregard for the Constitution. When Trump suggests that his influence is rendered impotent in the face of legal accountability, or that bureaucratic maneuvering can render the Supreme Court's authority irrelevant. It marks a departure from the commitments that underpin democratic governance. Beyond the chilling optics of bureaucratic indifference, this episode raises profound legal and ethical questions. In a court of law, false or misleading statements carry the threat of sanctions, including disbarment and legal censure. Yet, in televised public statements, there seems to be little restraint. Such double standards raise alarms about the erosion of accountability. Figures like Stephen Miller, whose comments have often strayed into hyperbolic territory, demonstrate that utterances made in the public sphere, though lacking formal legal consequences, can precipitate a significant shift in political ethos. It is a scenario in which mere rhetoric paves the way for actual policy decisions, regardless of their compliance with established law. The political ramifications of these actions cannot be understated. Republicans appear to view this defiance as a principled stand, one that underscores a willingness to challenge judicial constraints in favor of an unyielding executive mandate. Conversely, Democrats, still reeling from the perceptions of leniency on immigration and broader civil liberties issues, are likely to seize upon these developments as evidence of an administration that increasingly prioritizes power over procedural safeguards. A recent example involves the controversial transport of what was initially presented as a first plane loader of 283 Venezuelan men, individuals labelled as gang members, murderers, rapists, and killers. Subsequent investigations, however, revealed that 75% of those deported had no criminal record whatsoever. This discrepancy not only undermines the credibility of the administration's narrative, but also broadens the debate from matters of immigration enforcement to fundamental civil rights violations. In the wake of these revelations, the political debate is likely to widen and... Critics have argued that the current actions represent more than a breach of protocol. They signal an aggressive assault on the very fabric of American civil liberties. The sweeping nature of the deportations, coupled with the arbitrary detention practices now mirrored in El Salvador, raises the spectre of a slippery slope. If judicial oversight is bypassed in cases such as Quilomé Abrego Garcia's, what guarantees remain for other individuals? The public's faith in legal institutions is at stake, as is the nation's commitment to the rule of law. From a legal standpoint, the consequences for flouting a Supreme Court order are severe. Although the administration may argue that the public declarations made from the Oval Office differ in intent from their actions in court, the underlying message remains clear: a willingness to disregard judicial mandates. The ramifications of such a stance extend beyond mere political rhetoric. They underscore a broader ideological shift in which established principles of due process, transparency, and accountability risk being sacrificed on the altar of expediency and power. Internationally, these actions are likely to reverberate through diplomatic channels and judicial forums. When a United States administration appears to condone, or even engineer, a scenario in which citizens are effectively handed over to foreign entities without due legal process, it challenges both international human rights norms and the perceived reliability of US governance. The fact that such a strategy is being employed in coordination with a foreign leader known for draconian measures only heightens the stakes. It prompts urgent questions about where lines are drawn between national sovereignty and international accountability. In addition to the legal and political dimensions, the human element of this case is equally disturbing. The erosion of civil liberties, whether manifested through the deportation of unsuspecting American citizens or the broad targeting of individuals without sufficient evidence, inflicts lasting harm on communities and individuals alike. The debate is no longer a narrow discussion of immigration policy, but a profound inquiry into the preservation of human rights and democratic values in an era of increasing authoritarian tendencies. As this crisis unfolds, the imperative for independent, progressive media coverage becomes ever more evident. The investigative community plays a crucial role in shining a light on actions that threaten to undermine the constitutional guarantees upon which the nation is built. The current administration's reliance on technicalities and the deliberate pursuit of loopholes must be scrutinized rigorously if the rule of law is to be defended. It is a clarion call for transparency and accountability, urging both political leaders and the public to hold those in power to the highest standards of justice and integrity. In summary, what we are witnessing is a confluence of defiant rhetoric, controversial policies, and alarming disregard for judicial authority. President Trump's overt actions in alignment with NIBEWL exemplify an emerging strategy that seeks to reframe legal boundaries and circumvent established checks on power. While the Trump administration argues that legal technicalities justify these measures, the broader implications for American civil liberties and the integrity of our judicial system are deeply troubling. This report serves as a timely reminder of the critical need to uphold the principles of due process and accountability, even when confronted with rhetoric that dismisses such ideals as mere bureaucratic inconvenience. The unfolding situation demands vigilance from all stakeholders, public officials, legal experts, and citizens alike. As the administration pushes forward with policies that test the limits of the law, the legacy of these actions will be measured not only in political terms, but by their lasting impact on the democratic framework and human rights protections that underpin our society. Independent media and informed public discourse remain the cornerstone of any effort to hold power accountable in times of crisis, ensuring that the rule of law continues to serve as the bedrock of American governance.